But this is the case because, look, this is the one that has the elected district attorney, taking lots of taxpayer money, funneling it to her admitted paramour, and then benefiting from that financial arrangement by virtue of all the romantic trips and the getaways and all of those things.
We talked a little bit about Fani getting kicked off of the Trump case yesterday. We can give a round of applause for that, right? This is just some well-deserved karma, and we all know from looking at the evidence what happened between her and Nathan Wade, from Ashley Merchant getting on the podium and absolutely eviscerating Fani Willis in 4K. We know that this was only a matter of time before this happened, especially with Donald Trump, Mr. 4547, about to be in office here in a second. But we have some more updates on what's going on behind the scenes here. And we actually have one of our fellow YouTubers was on Fox News talking about it. We've got Phil Holloway was on Fox News. We're going to get an update from him and see what his take is on this entire situation. Y'all check it out.
Attorney Fani Willis, who went after Donald Trump in Georgia, just got kicked off the case. Georgia's Court of Appeals has just disqualified her from prosecuting the 2020 election case against Donald Trump and his co-defendants. They are citing conflict of interest. Well, no kidding. The court began looking into whether Willis should continue the case after that romantic relationship with the ex-prosecutor Nathan Wade came to light. The court said this: while we recognize that an appearance of impropriety generally is not enough to support disqualification, this is the rare case in which disqualification is mandated, and no other remedy will suffice to restore public confidence in the integrity of these proceedings.
And I don't know if they're going to get into it in a minute, but y'all know what happened. Fani Willis, she hired her boyfriend. All right. What? She hired her boyfriend to be the special prosecutor in this Trump case. Now, normally we would say, okay, what's the big deal? They're both professionals. They're both lawyers. But in this case, Nathan Wade had absolutely zero experience as a prosecutor. He had zero experience with this type of trial, zero experience with this case. Not only that, but Fani Willis paid him well above and beyond what an average prosecutor would get paid, or a special prosecutor would get paid in this instance. We're talking about 3, 4, 5, 6 times more, which is insane. Then they had other things that went on behind the scenes. They were taking cruises. There was some money missing, misappropriation of funds. It's a whole mess, super mess, and embarrassing to Fani Willis, honestly, to see her get up on the stand and act like this is okay. She should be ashamed of herself.
Yeah, well, she put him there. He was making more than anybody else on the staff, and his resume didn't really match up what his job was going to be to go after Trump.
Correct.
There's that.
I think it was 600,000.
The court did not outright, though, dismiss this case. It will now be up to the Prosecuting Attorneys Council of Georgia to find another prosecutor to take over the case and decide whether to pursue it. That process could be delayed if Fani Willis decides to appeal to the state Supreme Court and tries to get back on the case. President-elect Trump told Fox moments ago, quote, "Whole case has been a disgrace to justice, and that should not be allowed to go any further." Phil Holloway, former assistant district attorney, former Georgia police officer, and legal advisor to Georgia's Sheriff's Department. So, that state.
First of all, shout out to Phil. I'm going to have a link to his YouTube channel in the description. Y'all make sure you go check him out. He has some Phil has an absolutely amazing channel and does a great job of explaining some of these legal situations and the legal aspects to folks who aren't actually lawyers or went to law school. So I really enjoy his content, and I'll make sure I leave a link to him and his channel in the description.
His legal system,
Law is the name of
Fani Willis. Talk to me about what they saw outside of what we all knew.
Well, Harris, the statement or the part of the opinion that you referenced in the lead regarding there's no other remedy that will suffice is, I think, the very best and most important language in this opinion, because the appearance of impropriety, as the courts note, is oftentimes not enough. But this is the case because, look, this is the one that has the elected district attorney, taking lots of taxpayer money, funneling it to her admitted paramour, and then benefiting from that financial arrangement by virtue of all the romantic trips and the getaways and all of those things. So
Disgusting.
if it's not a direct kickback, it certainly has the smell of potentially a kickback. And her testimony, of course, they said had the odor of mendacity, which means that nobody believed her testimony when she tried to explain this. But it's more than the conflict of interest with Nathan Wade. This is also about what we call forensic misconduct. There's out-of-court statements where Ms. Willis goes into the well of a local church here in Fulton County, Georgia, which is full of potential voters and full of potential jurors, by the way, I might add.
Yeah.
And she maligns and impugns the various defendants out in a very public way. Prosecutors are not allowed to do that. They're not allowed to try their case, so to speak, on the courthouse steps, nor in the well of a church. This is something that was actually predicted. I predicted this outcome. She can appeal it to the Georgia Supreme Court, but I've got news for her. The Georgia Supreme Court is not going to take this case. It's discretionary. They don't have to do it, and they won't. They are going to affirm the Court of Appeals, and this case is going to be effectively over because the Prosecuting Attorney's Council of Georgia is not going to be able to find another DA if they wanted to, Harris.
That's a fact. And we're going to get into it a little bit later. Spoiler alert. Shocker, I know to most of you. Fani Willis did appeal this decision. We all know how this is going to go. We'll get into that a little bit later.
That wants to take this monstrosity.
Is that the only issue with this case? Because, you know, that can change. People can come in and out of those jobs and so on and so forth. Is there anything else inherently true about this case that would get it dismissed at this point?
The former President-elect Trump has asked the Court of Appeals to dismiss the case. And of course, in this opinion, they said, look, this is not this doesn't rise to the level of dismissal. That's a separate issue. Now, there's other requests being made of the courts on the grounds of presidential immunity and that sort of thing. But this effectively kills the case, Harris. It's an orphan indictment. It's now going to be indictment without a prosecutor. And the Prosecuting Attorney's Council is not going to find any other DA that wants this. Look, they'd have to shut down their whole office, and they'd have to, just for this case, basically shut down all of their operations. They would have to redo everything that she did and try to fix the problems that she created. It's not going to happen.
All right, I want to get to this. Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin is pushing back on sanctuary cities in his state. Watch this.
All right, so that's getting into a little bit of the background of what happened with Fani. As I mentioned earlier, she is appealing this, which is going to be interesting to see how that goes, because as Phil mentioned, there's no reason for the Georgia Supreme Court to overturn this. She already had her chance. There was this decision made. Then they appealed it in the first place. 3 judges, 2 out of the 3 said that she shouldn't have continued with this in the first place. Kind of similar to what we saw with Glanville. They know what's going on and they know what's up in Fulton County. And it'll be interesting to see what happens with this moving forward, because I personally don't think that anyone's going to want to take this case. Now, with this being a case against the 47th president of the United States, it doesn't make sense to me. But y'all let me know what you think in the comments about this and also in the chat.